Okay, so this isn't any, even though it's a larger scale, it's not any different than some of the other decals in terms of how you build it out and what you want to do with it. So for me, I have this piece of just clear Tecta, and I have marked an X in the middle of what is that Tecta, and the way I did that was I just you know, put my ruler on here, edge to edge or corner to corner, marked a spot, did the same there, and then that's how I come up with the center. And I am going to get this in the design into the center here, and then I am going to tape it down just for my own sanity. So let me do that now. My Tecta is clean and ready to go. Okay, so now I will build my design, and all I'm going to do is use Frit. You can use anything. Some large Murrini would look really cool in here, some slices, something flattened maybe, but I'm going to use coarse Frit, and I'm just going to fill it in, so I'm going to put a thin layer of glue down. I'm going to use just glass tack gel to kind of keep my Frit from going too far. Then I'm going to get it in here. I may use some hairspray as well to kind of build that out. I'm going to use a variety of colors. I'm going to kind of follow the patterns that I think might look good, and then I'm going to do a full fuse on this with a second sheet of Tecta underneath. So it'll be a little bit more than 2 layers thick when you have all that Frit on top. That's going to kind of expand and melt out, but I don't think it's going to distort the edges too much because I think the design will be far enough away from the edges themselves. And if it does, I guess I can always cold work it before I take it back in to apply the decal and add the slump. So this, again, the decal is underneath. I'm only putting it there so that I can build this out. I'll peel this off, full fuse it, then apply my decal and fire it again. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this on high speed here because you don't need to see every little detail. I'm gonna build this out and make some color selections, and we'll see what it looks like when it's fired. All right, that's it. I was getting a little tired here and probably a little lazy at the end. I can see a few spots where maybe I need to put just a little bit more Frit, but generally I think this is going to cover most of the open spaces, and I left the black outline because that's going to just, you know, cover clear glass anyway, so why waste colored glass there. I decided to use one of Tabitha's amazing mandalas in the middle, and then I also had some of her simple Murrini slices that I added in there for some pops of color. I did red and yellow around the middle here. I've got these orange Murrini, green, spring green, some yellow. Picked some light aquamarine and light sky blue for the outside. It's going to be fun. So I'm going to peel this carefully off after it dries and put it in the kiln without the decal, do a full fuse, and we'll see what it looks like when it comes out. All right, my blank is fired and I've cleaned it all up. And here is that super large decal. Now, each decal comes with, or most of them, have a little layer of tissue paper. You have to peel that tissue paper off. And then you soak this whole thing in water. Now, this yellow will burn out to be clear, so you don't have to worry about the yellow. I've got a pan of water here, and I'm just going to trim this roughly, frankly, so that it'll fit in my pan, because this is so large, which is not a problem I've had before, because most of my decals are not over 7 inches big. But I'm going to trim this. Sorry, I'm doing this off camera so that I can do it and not get it into the water. Doesn't have to be precise, just doing a rough, you know, trim around the edge. And now I'm going to soak this in water. You'll see it curls up a little bit, so you just want to kind of push it down, get it fully submerged in the water. And my water's a little cooler, so it depends on the temperature of water. I would just recommend generally room temp. I'm out here in the garage and it's a little cold out here. So the warmer your water, the faster it's likely that this decal will be ready to slide off. But we'll just give this a little bit of time. Now, I did do a full fuse on this, and so it's relatively smooth and flat. I've got some bubbles that happen in here. I could have dusted some clear powder between my clear glass to eliminate some of those bubbles. I actually don't care so much about bubbles. I think they're kind of fun and add a little extra dimension, so that part doesn't bother me, but you could do that if you want. What I'm going to do is just check my decal here to see if it's ready to slide yet. It is not, so I'm gonna let it go a little bit longer. It's really important to remember that when you're working with these decals, there is a right side up. The printed side that's up needs to remain up at all times. So when you're sliding this off of your paper, you literally want to slide it off. You don't want to peel it up and risk flipping it. Anytime that I've gotten, not anytime, but for the most part, when I've gotten a note from somebody that says I'm having issues with these decals and the way they're firing, we realize that they accidentally flipped it upside down. So you want to make sure that the face of this remains up at all times. All right, let's see here. So everything's going to be wet and sloppy here for a little bit, but this is sliding now. So I'm just going to basically put it on the edge. And what you're wanting to do is try to kind of capture one edge and then just slide the paper out from under. And the more that you can slide and not lift it, the better you're going to have of a chance of eliminating air bubbles. You don't want any bubbles under this decal because then it's likely to not fire fully correctly. And so you want to eliminate air bubbles as much as possible. Now I just get my finger wet and just kind of, smooth as much as I can the air bubbles out. But you can see how this is movable here. So what I'm going to do now is try to align my decal pattern to the colors of the glass that I put down. And it's not going to be perfect because, the glass moves as it full fuses. It was probably never perfect to begin with, but I'm just trying to get it as lined up as I can to try to, keep the pattern where I can. And so I'm just watching this and kind of just fiddling with it a little bit here, a little there. I think that's pretty good. So I use those round pieces of cane, but you can see where, now they're kind of bleeding into the design over here. That's all right though. I think it's just fun. I'm not so precise. You might be precise, and if so, then just make sure you lay it out accordingly if that's really the look that you're going for. So now what I'm trying to do is just kind of smooth out any bubbles without disrupting my pattern. Got to try to keep it in the same spot the best that you can. And I just moved it again. There we go, kind of finicky. So as I glance here, it's kind of hard. I don't see any bubbles. I'm gonna very carefully I'm moving this. Sop up some of the water, get this centered on here again, and you want this to dry before you fire it in the kiln. It doesn't take too long, but I usually just let it go for about a day. And then come back and look for wrinkles and air bubbles. If there remain air bubbles in your piece, then I like to use a little pin or even the little point of an X-Acto knife to kind of pop those. Even after it's dry, that's okay. You can kind of pop those bubbles out and try to push the decal flat to the glass, because if the decal is lifted or wrinkled up off the glass at all, then that black is not going to fire well onto the glass. So I think that's good. I'm going to stop fiddling with it. I'm just going to put it off to the side and let this fully dry. And then I will, before I fire it, I'm going to just kind of very carefully clean the glass around it, because now I've gotten some sloppy water, and I'm going to check it for any bubbles. I can see some wrinkles in the decal. This might just be, you guys asked for a large decal. This might be part of the challenge with large decals, is it's going to be harder and harder to get them to be fully smooth. But for now, I'm going to stop fiddling with it. I'm going to put it aside, let it start to dry, and then I'll check it again in a little bit. Here's this Mamma Jamma. Now, I'm going to be honest, when I put this on, I was a little worried. It was kind of wrinkly. and it was hard for me to get the wrinkles out. But the longer it sits and kind of dries, it almost kind of stretched itself in a little bit, and the wrinkles have pretty much gone away. There were a couple of air bubbles that off camera I went ahead and worked out, but can you see that one? There's an example of one right there, but it's in the clear portion. It's not with the black. I'm not even gonna touch it. It's fine. So you just wanna look this over very carefully. But again, I'm kind of impressed or curious. It was kind of wrinkly across this. I got as much out as I could, and I worried about it. But then as it's dried, it's really kind of settled down pretty nicely. So now you can see where, because I put the decal on, there's some water spots and stuff on this clear. So once I know this is really, it's pretty dry as it is, but I'm gonna get a rag and a little bit of glass cleaner and just kind of carefully go around the edges here and clean this up before I put it in for the firing. So I've noticed something unique about these large decals, and I want to talk to you about it. What you can see, depending on how I hold this, is you can kind of see that frit through the decal. So these larger decals are actually printed and made the exact same way as the smaller ones, but I think because the surface area of the black is so much, you actually tend to see a phenomenon here on the large one that may be happening on the small one too, you just don't notice. But because my color concentration isn't across the entire thing, there are areas where, let's see if I can get the camera to pick this up, where you can kind of see the frit through the black. It almost makes it look like there's a little greasy spot or something on there. So it's not awful, and the decal fired on quite nice. This is food safe. I actually think this is a pretty neat looking piece. So overall, I'm very pleased with this. You asked for large decals, and here they are. I think the design is a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of potential and possibility that you guys are going to do with these. Remember, they're food safe, so plates and platters and bowls are all fair game. I'm thinking the transparent frit being seen through the decal is going to be seen less on opaque. So there's something for you to consider as well. Thanks.